what it does when we experience craving, and this is why we experience craving, is what it does is it drives us to action. But it does it in such an incredibly crude way. You know? We're human beings. We're not some primitive organism that the only hope it has of acting in ways that are going to be beneficial to it is to be driven by desire and aversion, and be driven by craving in its different forms. We're human beings. We have intelligence. We can cultivate that intelligence, and so that we acquire wisdom. In the process, we don't lose the ability to recognize what's good and what's bad, what's wholesome and what's unwholesome, what's beneficial and what's not beneficial. We see it just as clearly as ever. But instead of being driven by a very crude emotional reaction, we can act with wisdom and reason, tempered by compassion and loving kindness, respect for other people, and all these other things. So this is ultimately where the ability to overcome craving brings you to. And I love to imagine how it might transform the world if we had enough people that were coming from this kind of place. No matter what, life is going to present you with all kinds of difficult situations. Loss, illness, disease. You know, there's just, it's the nature of things. Things are unsatisfactory in the sense that no matter how they really are, we can always imagine some way that we would want them to be better. Even if we've got a lot, we want more. But most of the time it's not even the situation if we got a lot and the problem is that we want more. It's that we don't have any, or we've got something that really hurts, or those other kinds of things. So that's the way life is. That's the reality. That's in these bodies and in this world. That's the situation that we're always going to be in. It is by its very nature unsatisfactory, and it's constantly changing. And there's just no point in generating some idea of how we want things to be and then causing ourselves to suffer when they don't turn out that way, or becoming attached to the way things are and suffering when it changes, because it's always going to change and it's never going to turn out quite the way that we would like it to. So that's the reality. So if you come from just that truth, if that's the way it is, then the question is, well, what can I do about it? Because you can't change the world, you can't change the universe. What you can change is the way that you react and respond to it. And that's what it's all about. The interesting thing about the process is that you can practice doing that, and you can learn, and you can modify your behavior patterns, your own conditioning. And that's a very important thing to do. It's a very wonderful thing to do, to work on yourself, to perfect yourself. And you will realize the benefits of it as for so long as you do it. You'll keep realizing the benefits of it. And the way to do that is to practice mindfulness and allow mindfulness to convert ignorance to wisdom, and to allow wisdom to temper your responses and your reactions to the situations that you're in. and to come more and more into this place of acceptance, non-resistance, and just being with whatever comes, and then doing what's appropriate as a result of that. But that's not the whole story. And it's a good thing because the changes that you make in yourself in this way is you're taking a mind that can be conditioned, can be trained, and it has been conditioned and trained in one way, and then you're recognizing that, and so you're doing things that will change that conditioning, and you recondition your mind in the future. But your mind remains an entity that is subject to conditioning, and the positive conditioning you are creating can become overwhelmed by circumstances. I mean, if you're lucky, overwhelming circumstances will always stay, a step behind the positive conditioning of the mind. But there's always that risk that tomorrow something's going to come up that just overwhelms all this good, wonderful conditioning that you've been able to do for your mind. So, also it's subject to the conditioning going the other way too. If you stop practicing this mindfulness and directing your responses, there's a huge backlog of old conditioning there, and it will start to manifest, and it starts reasserting itself. And of course, every time you allow it to reassert itself, your highly conditionable mind is now starting to be reconditioned in the negative way again, right? One way we could put this is that you start out with a whole lot of karma that's not so good, and you can make some good karma, and that'll improve things. But you can never tell when some of the old bad karma is going to catch up with you, right? It's still there. And not only that, no matter how much new good karma you make, it wears out too, right? So that's why, although this is very, very important, the other really important thing to do is to get to the root of it. Get to the root of the craving. Why? Again, this goes to the question, it goes beyond just the fact that, yeah, we're driven by craving, and yeah, we do this, and yeah, we create our own suffering this way. But why? Where does it come from? What can we do about it in a more profound sense? And that's really, in terms of the Buddhist teaching, that's really what the fourth truth is about. It is about the path to permanent eradication of suffering. Complete liberation is the permanent eradication of its cause, which is craving. And that's what the Eightfold Path is about. So an important part of the Eightfold Path is creating good karma, conditioning your mind in a positive way, diminishing the amount of suffering and unhappiness that you experience in the world through recognizing and being mindful of these reactions. And that's really true, and very valuable, and it's part of the Eightfold Path. But what it's doing is getting you ready to go to the deeper level and recognize that all of this craving is based on a more profound set of illusions. I mean, if you look at the resistance to what is in the present moment, there's so many illusions in that. And right at the heart of them It's this me that is experiencing this me that wants things different. And there is a separation there. And that's what self is. The word self has no meaning at all, except in contrast to its opposite, which is everything that's not self. And so, what is being split into two parts. And one part is the self, and then there's everything else. Right? And then everything's being interpreted in terms of to what degree is everything else serving the needs of the separate self. And that's where we come from. But the self, it takes a little work to come to understand what the real nature is of what's going on. It doesn't just come from thinking about it a little bit. We have to go deeper and see that. But if you can begin to recognize that as being the problem and start working with that more directly, then you can uproot craving and the causes of suffering in a way that doesn't seem to be subject to being overwhelmed, and the conditioning doesn't seem to be subject to going the other way. So we start with where we are, and it is the necessary first step and the necessary foundation is to stop this blindly reacting the way we always have, and to get to the place where we can start to see things clearly. Part of that is that things get immediately better in all kinds of ways. Right?